Okay, so how far did you travel for training?
For training?
Yeah, or was it close?
Well, he started his training in the suburb of Chicago, and then it sort of morphed into farther away. So by the time he was in middle school and beginning of high school, we were traveling an hour each way. And then in the summers, I've been trained in Switzerland and Russia, and I did not go with him. And that started when he was about 14 or 15, and he did that for 3 years. And then when he graduated from high school, he moved out to California to train. And I would just go out about once a month to just keep tabs on his training, to see how it was going, see what his level of frustration was or success, whatever the day brought. And does that pretty much answer your question?
Yeah. Who did he live with when he was out in California?
The first year he lived with my brother-in-law, so his uncle, and he commuted from Burbank to El Segundo, which was about an hour and a half to 2 hours each way. And then we bought a condo once he was out there for a year. So when he was 19, he moved into a condo that we purchased that was about 30 minutes from the rink.
Okay.
So he lived alone then from the time he was 19 on.
Okay. So when did you see that Evan had something special?
I saw that Evan had something special when he was 2, but not necessarily in skating. He was just a really unique kid that always really delved into anything he was interested in. He was always very hyper-focused. So because I was a school teacher, and I just recognized that there was something different about him than my other children. And then when he started skating, it wasn't that he really wanted to be an Olympian or wanted to learn to skate. We just put he and his sister in skating lessons one winter to give them some exercise. And he was like 8 years old at the time. And then when he was 9, he started taking private lessons and buying contract ice, which is ice where you skate with kids at your level. And then when he was 10, he won his first national title, and it was at the juvenile level. And that's kind of when I thought that this might be something bigger than just a recreational sport. And so at that point, he started to become very serious about it, and so did we, because obviously he needed us for not only logistics, but for emotional support.
Okay. So did Evan ever want to quit, but then you told him to give it another try?
There were a couple times where he was frustrated enough that he entertained the idea of quitting, because he moved up to the championship or elite level at a very young age. He was only 14 because he won the junior title then. And so it was kind of a given that he would move up. And he was competing against some really big guns and people way older than him, like Michael Weiss and Todd Eldridge and Timothy Gable and all these people, some of them twice his age. And so he had a very poor showing at his first senior national, and then he sort of entertained the idea from disappointment. So my advice was basically, let's take a break from it for a few weeks. We won't talk about it. We won't, go to the rink, nothing. And then once you've sort of thought about everything and worked through it, then you can make a decision. And I want to say that really only happened twice in his career, where he really had to step back and think about, is this what I want to do?
Okay. So did all of his relatives understand the sacrifices of everything that he had to go through?
No. Um, well, obviously his sisters did. He has two sisters, and my husband and I did. But apart from that, I would say absolutely not. I mean, we didn't. We lived in. I live still in Chicago, but we raised
Mhm.
our children here, and most of our family didn't live here. But no, I think there's no way to understand it unless you're actually going through it.
Mhm. I don't know if my mom told you this, but I'm a gymnast. And
Oh,
so
okay.
so I guess they're similar in like the aspect of it's like you fall and then you fall a lot and then you have to like get up and then it's like very mental sport.
Well, it's an individual sport, and
Yeah.
it's like I don't know if Actually, I'm having lunch with Nastia Lukin next week. Do you know who she is?
Of course.
She's a very good friend, and she's going to be in Chicago, so we're having lunch. But having talked to her, and she was a really big support of Evan because
Mhm.
she had won in Beijing, and they were really good friends, and so she came to Vancouver, and she was a huge support. But it's kind of the same thing when you're in an individual sport, you're out there alone, and with skating, for instance, it's you fall about 10,000 times before you land a jump.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's similar in learning a new trick or a difficult
Yeah.
trick in gymnastics. Um, so it's a very repetitive and really a sport of failure because you have to fail, and that's what a lot of people don't understand about it. You have to
Mhm.
fail over and over and over again in order to succeed,
Yes.
and it makes it very unique. But um, yeah, I'm going to see Nastia next week. So what level are you?
Um I actually am on my high school team. So,
Okay, that's very cool.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that's very cool. So you get it because you have to, being in an individual sport, you know what
Yes.
it takes to get to the next level.
Mhm. So, that kind of leads on to my next question. What does it take to support an Olympic athlete emotionally?
Um, you have to wear a lot of different hats because some days you're as frustrated as they are, but you can't show it.
Mhm.
So you have to learn. What I've learned is you have to learn when it's okay to discuss his frustrations and when you have to hold back. And there are just so many variables that go into the sport. So it's really difficult because unlike gymnastics with skating, you have to worry about the condition of the ice. You have to worry about uh, your equipment not failing you because
Mhm.
so many skaters have equipment issues. You have to worry. Well, this would be the same with gymnastics as well. When you're on an elite level, you have to worry about time change. You have to worry about your health. You have to worry about getting food poisoning wherever you go. I mean, there's so many variables. So to be supportive in all those areas, and then you have the athlete that's emotionally or mentally psyching themselves out. So it's just really a learned it's just a learned thing that took me years and years to figure out. And right when I think I have it nailed, he's not skate competing anymore.
Mhm.
But it's um it's it's a challenge. It's like riding a roller coaster at an amusement park, you know? One day when they're up, you're on an emotional high because you feel like, oh, this is so all worth it. But then when they're having a bad day, it's just like then your emotions sort of peak and valley as well. And I've always said my motto as a mom is you're only as happy as your saddest child. So Evan having being in the kind of being in the spotlight from age 10 on, there were a lot of times that weren't really really gratifying, but then there were also a lot of times that were. So you just have to balance it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. So, How far in advance did Evan fly up to Vancouver before the games actually began?
Not very far, because he learned his lesson in Torino. He also competed in Torino and went a week ahead. And that didn't work so well. I mean, he finished okay, he finished fourth, but he had a really horrible short program. So, Vancouver, I want to say he went the last possible moment he could, maybe just 2 or 3 days before his short program.
So,
Plus, he was in the same time zone. So he didn't have to, he didn't have to
mhm,
worry about jet lag or changing time zones. That's always a big factor. And since he didn't have to do that, and he had already skated on that ice once before, so he knew the ice. He didn't feel the need to have to get there too much ahead of time.
mhm. So did figure skating stay like at the rink, or did you and Evan kind of talk about it like at home too?
We never talked about it at the rink because I was never a parent who believed in going down and being by the boards. I wasn't that kind of mom. I was always either not there. I would leave. When he was older, I would leave and then pick him up. But when he was younger, I always sat in the stands and
Mhm.
never wanted to go down and talk. And I never talked to the coach while he was in a lesson. It always waited until after. So the only time that we really talked about it usually was on the drive to or from. Once we got home, we
Mhm.
didn't really talk about it. It was more in the car.
Okay. So, like, what kind of family sacrifices, like within like the immediate family, had to be made for Evan to figure skate?
Correct. Oh, you want to know
Like,
what those are?
yeah, like what kind of things?
Oh, just everything from, every vacation was centered around a figure skating competition. But I had three high level athletes all in different sports. My
Mhm.
daughter was a Division 1 volleyball player. Our youngest daughter, and then the oldest one was a softball player. But with Evan, it's once he got to that elite level, like every vacation had to be centered around skating because that's financially it was difficult until he gained some sponsorship because as you probably have found out through your research, it's a very expensive sport. Um,
Yes.
and just being away from home a lot, it was like dad played mom a lot because Evan started traveling internationally when he was 11, and I just wouldn't let him go, even though they went as a team, or they didn't travel as a team, but there was a team leader. I just didn't feel comfortable with him traveling all over the world at such a young age. So I would go with him, and then dad stayed home with the girls, and he sort of played mom. And just, I mean, it really enters in every facet of the family.
Mhm.
Everything. Like there were so many holidays we didn't get to spend together, even when Evan was in high school, and even middle school. That he would be in Italy for Easter, he would be in Russia for Thanksgiving, or we Christmas was always stressful, even though we celebrated Christmas and had a wonderful time. It was always very close to nationals. So that
Mhm.
always was in the back of everyone's head is, gosh, nationals are just a few weeks away. So it really entered pretty much every aspect of our lives.
Mhm.
Um, and the girls too. My older daughter had to, when Evan started skating an hour away, some days I would take him, drive home, take him, and come back again. But that's a 4 hours in the car. So a lot of days I would stay in the area, not necessarily at the rink. But it caused us to move because we moved actually even farther from the rink, but I wanted my younger daughter to be able to walk to school so that she could have play dates and not have to worry about me setting appointments for play dates. She could just ride her bike to a friend's house. And my older daughter, Evan's older sister, was the one that sort of always had to look after her all through her elementary school years. And you just make it work as a family. The one sacrifice I was not willing to make was to let Evan move away and train somewhere else until he finished high school, or for him to move away and me move with him, because I was not willing to disrupt our family unit. That was of the utmost importance to all of us, even Evan.
Hmm. So prior to the Vancouver games, were you ever worried about Evan's nagging foot injury, I guess?
I worried about his well being every single day because I wasn't there. And he's had so many injuries, and he's the type of person that sort of would to go away. So he doesn't address injuries right when they happen. He just sort of says, okay, maybe it's something that I can tweak and it'll feel better tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And usually by the time he addresses it, it's a more serious injury than what we had thought. So that was something I was constantly worried about. Just because I wasn't there, and I would have to either listen to Frank, his coach, describe to me what was going on, or for him to describe to me. And when prior to that, Torino and Vancouver, I tried to get out to LA as much as I could, just to sort of see where he was, not even physically as much as emotionally, and that he was
Mm-hmm.
holding it together and feeling good about himself and feeling that he was in a good place mentally.
Did you talk or like see Evan the day like before he did his performance when he won his gold medal? But did you like talk to him the day of?
Oh, for sure. I went to his practice both days, the day of, um, and I wanted, this is very blurry. I know I saw him after practices both days, but I want to say that I even saw him for a while after the short program practice for like coffee or something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember. It's sort of foggy, but I definitely always saw him the day of for every competition.
Did you so when you see him like the day of a competition, do you ever talk about the competition or do you like talk about other things?
I listen because usually
Mm-hmm.
he does the talking. And I can usually tell by his body language how he's feeling. And in Vancouver, I felt it was so different than Torino. He was so nervous in Torino. He was so young. He was just 20, and it was his first Olympics, and it was just a totally different mindset in Vancouver. So I could see that he was prepared and he was ready, and I just pretty much listen because I don't know if you're like this before a competition, but the last thing you want someone to do is talk your ear off. So I
Mm-hmm.
always felt like the day of or even the day before, I just sort of am there. Or I would just say, I'm here. We could talk about whatever you want, or we could just sit and not talk at all, or we could play
Mm-hmm.
Sudoku or whatever. But I usually let him. The last thing I wanted to do, especially in Olympic Games, was to annoy him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you like like in Vancouver, did you know that like he could win?
Um, that is a very good question.
Like did you think that oh, he could totally win this?
I thought that he could totally medal. To be honest, I'm going to be completely honest with you, because well, he had won world championships the year before, so that was a good sign.
Mhm.
But that was usually a bad luck sign. The last person that won Olympic Games after winning world championships was Scott Hamilton in 1984. It had never happened, and that was always like an omen. It's kind of a like, oh gosh, you won world championships. Okay, you're not going to win Olympic Games.
Mhm.
But Scott was a really good mentor. Scott said, look, Evan, you can do this. So going in as world champion, but then having Yevgeny Plushenko there, who we thought was a given,
Mhm.
or a lot of people thought was a given,
Mhm.
scored him, whatever. Um, I wasn't sure that he could win, but I knew that he could medal. And then after the short program, when he scored so well and skated so beautifully, I thought he could do really well.
Mm-hmm.
But, um, and I remember Julie called me and wanted to. You, there was a party at USA House if you win, or if you even if you
Yes.
medal.
She
And
told me
she
about
called
those.
and said, "Did she tell you I wouldn't give her any names?" She said, "I need your list for the party." I said, "Oh no, I'm not giving you any names. There is no party until there's a party, and then I'll give you names." So it was so funny. Right after he won, I'm still in the stands waiting for him to get his medal, and she called me and goes, "I need the names." So I had my niece go around and write everybody's names down and give them to Julie. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I can't give you names. I'm sorry. But after he skated, and I don't know if you knew this, but I don't watch him. I'm not even in the arena. I don't watch him compete. So after he skated, I was at the Procter and Gamble house, which is a safe house, and
Yes.
they would be very good people for you to interview because they were instrumental in providing such a safe haven for the athlete
Yes.
and the family. But anyway, um, and Julie could probably give you the names of the people that were in charge of the P&G house in Vancouver
Mm.
because they were
Yeah.
fabulous.
I
Okay,
interviewed one of them already, actually.
oh, that's good. So, So after he skated, they had a car waiting for me and took me to the arena. And when I got there was another U.S. skater skating, Johnny Weir. So then there was Johnny, and then Yevgeny was the final skater. And Evan, my daughters were texting me, and Evan was still in first place. So
Mm-hmm.
when I got there, I knew he was going to medal. So I was already pretty stoked. And it's so funny. After Yevgeny skated, I looked at my husband and I said, we're getting the silver medal. And I was beside myself. I was so excited. And
Mm-hmm.
then when his scores came up, we just couldn't. I mean, it was so. He definitely deserved the gold medal, but sometimes in this sport, that isn't the way it works out.
Yeah.
So um, I was just so ecstatic. It was incredible.
Mm. Did Evan know that he could do it?
Oh, I think so. I think every athlete, I think every athlete believes that they can do it. Otherwise, what's the point of going through the grind for year after year after
Mm-hmm.
year?
Um, did you get access to like tickets like easier than the general public to the events that Evan skated in?
Oh, yeah. We got comp tickets for the family through the USOC for two, my husband and myself, and then Evan had a lot of endorsement deals. So Coca-Cola gave us some tickets, and I don't remember who else. Maybe Ralph Lauren. We had so our entire family had comp tickets, and then we had a lot of comp events through the U.S. Olympic Committee at the Procter and Gamble House. If they had extra tickets to an event, they would just make an announcement, say, "Is anyone interested in going to speed skating in 2 hours? If so,
Mm-hmm.
come and grab a ticket." So there were, yeah. So we actually were very lucky that we didn't have to buy tickets.
Mm-hmm. So before Evan left for the Olympics or before one of his competitions, when you like would usually meet with him, was the stress like ever getting to him about it?
Yes. um, like I said, I'll usually tell his stress level through his body language. I could tell whether he was feeling it or not feeling it, and feeling like he, he was always well trained because he was a very hard worker. But then there are some times where you let those little that doubt creep in, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you get. And
Yes.
um, he learned at Torino, and again, as you come up through the ranks, you learn more and more. And from Torino, I think he learned that I'm never going to let that happen again. And he didn't.
Mhm.
I mean, after Torino, he won nationals 2 years in a row. He won 4 continent championships. He won worlds. He won the Grand Prix final. It was just a different mindset. And I think he realized that, you know what, this is just like any other competition, only it's more people watching.
Mhm.
Um, so it's, as you come up through the ranks, you just learn more and more. And that's why it's so important to have as much experience competing as you can prior to such a big event as the
Mhm.
Olympics.
So, what was it like knowing that Evan won a gold medal and was going to be an Olympic champion? If you can put that into words.
I can. I can say it in one sentence. It was the best moment of my entire life.
So, is it the journey or is it the destination?
It has to be the journey. I've given a lot of speeches since the Olympics, and when I try to tell kids who are trying to succeed and become elite athletes, it has to be about the journey. There's no guarantee with a destination for anybody in life, no matter what you're trying to do. It has to be about the journey. And that was the one thing that I always stress with my kids. If you're not enjoying today and you're just looking for 10 years from now, it's so not worth it. It has to be about the day to day, because that's the part that you're doing every day that nobody else sees.
Mhm. Wow. So, do you have any other like little tidbits that you want to share?
Only little tidbits. I don't know. I mean, I think Evan and I both said a lot in that piece of raising the Olympian,
Mhm.
and I I don't know. I just know that for me, and this was the time of my life. From
Mhm.
the time that, well, with all three of my kids, from the time that Evan started skating until he quit, and he fortunately touring with Stars on Ice, so I got to see him skate again this year. It was definitely the time of my life, and I think it was the time of his life too.
I bet. Yeah. So, do you have any other like words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom: love what you do.
Mhm.
Go follow your heart, love what you do, be passionate about it. And like what I tell kids, don't do it for your mom or your dad or your sister or your coach. You have to do it for yourself. And whatever your dream is that you're following, it has to be for you. It can't be for anyone else. And I think that's why Evan was so successful. It always
Mhm.
had to come from him. Every day I would say to him, "Do you want to skate today?" And if he
Mhm.
ever said no, which he didn't, then there were some days I wish he would, because at the beginning we were getting to the rink at 5:30 a.m. Um, I would say, "Fine, you don't have to skate." When he got to Torino, he was so nervous and so upset. And he said, "I don't know if I can do this, Mom," because we got there much later than him. I said,
Mhm.
"Then come home. You don't have to do it. This is about you. It's not about me. It's not about Frank. It's not about your country. It's about you. So if this isn't what you want to do, then that's fine. Everyone will get over it." And I think that helped him, because he said it just helped me to know that you would be okay if I couldn't get through it. Like,
Mhm.
of course I would be okay. I love you for who you are, not for what you do. Um, so that's about it. But if it gets closer to you turning your paper in and you need to call me again, just feel free anytime.
Okay.